Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market and figure out what in the hell is happening with Tesla, because it seems like things are happening pretty interestingly, to say the least, right? We had arguably not even an elevator down. We actually had, arguably like an escalator down, but we're having an elevator back up. Remember how I always said Tesla can move back up just as fast as it moves down? If this is not evident and proof of that, man, I don't know what the hell is, honestly. So yeah, let's talk about it. Tesla closing the day with a beautiful 5% rally. And this is after we had a massive earnings rally already. So another 5% day today, which is phenomenal. Google and Microsoft reporting earnings. You can see they're both up right here post-market, which is helping Tesla a little bit post-market as well. But yeah, things are so far looking pretty darn good for Tesla, right? Beautiful move up. And everyone that was pretty much promising me that we'll see $100 after the earnings report, suddenly they're pretty silent. That's all I'm going to say. So, this is why, when I say these kind of things, and I said how I personally feel pretty good about this, and if there's a spot to bounce, this is really just the spot to bounce, right? Because it just kind of just makes sense. People were all bullish up here and then we crashed. Now people are all bearish down here. I said that specifically in the video before earnings, and everyone is bearish. So it's like, I say these things, and if I'm wrong, you guys obviously always can hold me accountable. If these, random people write these comments and they're wrong, well, they just disappear, and no one knows, and no one can really say anything. So just keep that in mind, right? You always want to be careful when you listen to the masses that everyone's bearish, it's going to fall. Wow, Google's up a lot. I did not expect this at all. This is substantial. Anyways, moving into Tesla. So what can we expect from this, right? What does the chart look like? What is it telling us? Well, let's talk about the weekly first, because tomorrow is, of course, the last day of the week, and tomorrow is going to be a pretty spicy one. So we'll see what this actually means. But something pretty important is starting to happen on Tesla here, that if it occurs, can be extremely bullish moving forward. And we can have an even further explosive move off of these levels. Keep in mind, even though we're, doing phenomenally over here, Tesla is still down a decent amount year to date, right? Year to date, Tesla is still down 31%, even after today's move, right? 1 year now is finally up 10% if you bought literally exactly 1 year ago. So at least there's that, I guess. But year to date, we're still down like over 30% for the year, which is still pretty substantial, right? Now, moving forward, what does this all mean, right? So on the weekly, this is what I see, right? Obviously a phenomenal looking weekly candle, pretty much the exact opposite of last week's weekly candle, to the bullish side, of course. But what does this actually mean, right? Well, if we can close this week, so essentially tomorrow, above the highest point of last week's candle, which is 170.69. We're above that already post-market, thanks to Microsoft and Google. Wow, Google is skyrocketing. But if we do get above and close above that 170.69 level, we have officially now created a bullish engulfing candle, right? Which is pretty much this right here, right? Where essentially you have this candle that fully encapsulates the previous bearish, or usually red, candle that has a smaller body. So essentially the bullish candle, which is this week, overshadows last week's candle, which was, in this case, obviously a bearish candle. And that's so far what we have setting up here. If we do close above 170.69, so keep that in mind. If we do get that, that's really good, right? That is a bullish pattern. It is, especially the fact that it's on a weekly time frame, is even more, good, I guess, if you will, or bullish. And this could be very good moving forward. And I think at the very least, we come up to about this kind of, very high 170s to very low 180s, probably early next week. Honestly, I still expect a rejection from there. I do expect a bit of a cool off, but this should ultimately set up a very bullish pattern moving forward for the next several weeks, in my opinion, based on what it's looking like. And that would be very good news for Tesla. We have the stochastic on the weekly finally flipping bullish. The MACD is really starting to base now, right? And it's looking like it may want to start slowly looking for that crossover. So if we get a crossover on the weekly MACD, obviously bullish, right? RSI is pointing up and, poking its head above these highs here, which is also very good. So the weekly time frame is setting up to be quite bullish. Very good look on the weekly candle time frame so far. We'll see how it closes tomorrow, but based on after hours action, I can't imagine it's going to be too bad. So that's that, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind is we are approaching, at least at this level right now that we're at, this very low 170s, we are approaching a bit of a resistance point, right? Because we have this massive volume profile that we're currently trading within, and we slightly tapped as well, pretty much sitting around this like 172-ish, we'll say, region, right? So we are approaching a potential, area that could prove a little bit of troublesome, right? And not too far above that, we of course do have that dreaded low 180s level, which I talked about many times, which I think is still the most important level to break. If we can break 180 and start closing candles above 180, this officially, in my opinion, if we zoom out, breaks the structure, and we officially have set a fresh higher high. And then all that needs to be done after that is set a fresh higher low. So for instance, let's say we come up here, we break it, and let's say we come up somewhere around here. Ultimately, what I want to see is a move back down to either back to this 183 level and turn it back into support, or even if we go a little bit lower, maybe to like even the 170s, like mid to low even 170s. Ultimately, what I would want to see is that I want to see a higher low from this low here, and then we officially have a fresh higher high and a fresh higher low, and that officially, in my view, creates a pretty bullish reversal structure on Tesla. And I honestly think that obviously it's not just going to be straight up. I mean, it could be, you never know with Tesla, but the point is that it makes a healthy bullish structure. It almost like removes that bearish trend, assuming of course those things happen, and that's a really good sign to see for honestly the next few weeks, potentially even months. And honestly, if this were to happen, in my opinion, the chances of us coming back to the top of this channel up here, this massive channel, right? If we go back to the weekly, let's say, right? This top red line over here, right? So we touched the bottom green line. Coming back to this top red line sometime in the next few weeks, somewhere around 230, in my opinion, if that 180 thing that I just told you about happens, would be probable. It would probable. The chances of that increase decently, in my opinion, actually quite decently, in my opinion, too. So keep that in mind. We're in a pretty peculiar position. But again, you also want to be very clear, right? And try to take emotion off. If, there is still a chance that we reject from here, right? Like there is still a chance that we do get this rally, that we do move up here to this 230 level, but there is still a chance that we reject from there. And technically there's still a chance we come back down again to these levels down here. And ultimately we could still break down and make our way down to like $69. That's still a possibility. Like that's always a possibility until we get a confirmation break of this red or green line, right? Until we get that, we're just going to be zigzagging in between them until one of them finally snaps, right? And until one of them snaps, we can't say for sure that the bottom is in, right? Nothing is guaranteed, but even especially while we're within this massive weekly trading range, you really just cannot be too sure, I guess, if that makes sense, that the bottom is truly in or the top is in. Like you don't know. You really just do not know. It really just comes down to which of these major, what the hell's going on? Major levels finally decides to break, right? The red line or the green line. That's probably the most important thing moving forward over the next like medium term, I would say, the next few months probably. Once one of them snaps, we'll have a much better idea. But with that being said, the daily is still looking great. The MACD has officially flipped bullish. Stochastic is bullish. RSI is officially back above 50. Things are looking up, man. Things are definitely looking up. I'm a little bit sad I de-risked because when earnings did have that spike, I actually, again, how I said, I expected 160s to reject, potentially come back down to about the low 150s, and then we move up. That's what I thought would happen. I did de-risk at 158. I pretty much sold the shares that I bought pretty much at 158. I sold them post-market. So I am sad about that, obviously, but I obviously held on to still like about half the position. Shares that I'm willing to hold for the long term, I'm still holding, right? On both my accounts. But obviously, if I held those shares, this would have been obviously a much better move. But, de-risking is never a bad situation, especially when, such a massive plummet happens. So keep that in mind, right? I did de-risk a little bit, a little sad about that, but it is what it is. You never really know for sure. It's better having, a little bit lower risk than maybe what you're comfortable with. But that's just my personal opinion. But I am still, of course, holding plenty of shares, moving into this rally right here, which I'm still, of course, extremely happy with, right? Now, like I said, we are, of course, approaching this resistance point around this 170s level, right? Obviously, we're getting a massive push on Google right here. 14% is actually, wow, I really didn't think this would happen. This is huge. This is astronomical. Imagine if you bought the dip that was all the way down here at 130. If you bought this dip on Google from 130s and you wrote it up all the way up here and you're just casually holding, you're up 35% already. That's fucking awesome. That is huge. But nonetheless, right, moving back to Tesla, let's take a look at the band's regression. Right? The band's regression, like I said, the reversion to the mean, which I talked about before, which I don't think will happen until probably next week, is my guess. Currently it's sitting around 190, right? I personally think, especially if it takes a couple weeks, maybe to get to, the 180s, which I don't think it will, especially if we close above 170.69 tomorrow. I think it might happen next week, but it wouldn't surprise me if this comes down a bit further and it kind of meets us somewhere in that mid to low 180s as we come up to that massive volume profile, that massive area of just rejection that we've had before, support, resistance, now resistance, and really just probably the most crucial level short to medium term in my eyes, coming up very, very soon. So I do expect to test that probably next week. And whether or not it breaks it right away is the question. I don't think it will. I think we might get a rejection, probably move down a little bit, get a small breather, and then I think from there we'll kind of regroup it and then move up higher after that is what I personally expect right now. So we'll see how that actually plays out. And the main reason I say that is because the daily, not overbought yet, but it is approaching overbought territory, right? We are approaching overbought territory. We are at a massive volume profile. So, it's not uncommon to get a rejection from here. But if we start moving up closer to the 180s, we do start even on the daily entering some pretty overbought territory, similar to how we were very oversold down here. The 4-hour chart is already telling us that we are already overbought. You can see in some pretty extreme levels, all right, we're getting to an extreme level up here. So, the 4-hour is suggesting that a cool off is sooner than later going to happen. And we'll see if that happens to be the case or not. The 1 hour is kind of saying that we're extremely overbought as well. So there's a lot of very overbought on the short-term indicators telling me that if there's a place to either sell cover calls or to maybe kind of, calm down a little bit, this is roughly that area. Again, there's still potential, a little bit more room to the upside, but not too much more before at least some cool off, right? And if we do get this cool off, like where does it take us, right? Like where roughly can we go? Well, like I said many times, I expect it to be somewhere, especially now with this kind of move, it's going to be a little bit better than I thought before. But if we do get a cool off pretty much around this 172-ish area, we'll say, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe like the 160s really wouldn't shock me if we come back down to the 160s, turn that back into support once again, potentially even set up a inverted head and shoulders pattern, right? That is a possibility. So for instance, if we go over here, right? And let's say we do come up to somewhere around this area. Where is it? Somewhere around, like, let's say around this general area right around here, and we reject. And then, coming back down like this, set up the right shoulder right here, could be a potential as well. And then we ultimately make our way back up and break out. And that could be very, very bullish, which then would make a potentially even larger inverted head and shoulders, because it would look something like this, right? We would have the left shoulder here. We would have the massive head right here, and then potentially set up the right shoulder here between this 200 to 180 level all the way in here. And that would be also very, very bullish. So there's a lot of very bullish things setting up for Tesla here. It's looking pretty darn good, but the very, very short term, like within the next few days, I do think it's getting a little bit overextended here for the very, very short term. And I wouldn't be surprised to see at least a little bit of a cool off. I really wouldn't be surprised to see that whatsoever. And, we'll see if that actually happens to be the case or not. But ultimately, overall, Tesla's looking great, right? Breaking out of this, descending channel or wedge or whatever you want to call it right here on the daily. This time actually a convincing breakout as opposed to these ones here, which were kind of like so-so, right? A beautiful convincing breakout, a potential bullish engulfing on the weekly, right? We have the 4-hour that I just talked about. We had this, descending wedge here as well. I keep having the stupid drawing tool, right? This descending wedge that we also have broken out of. So maybe even from here, honestly, a calm down, like to come back to retest this breakout somewhere around the mid to potentially low 160s wouldn't completely shock me over the next couple of days or so, right? That wouldn't fully shock me either. And then we from here maybe move up even higher, right? There's a lot of ways this can play out right now. So, there is some strength post-market with Google and Microsoft, of course, helping out, but we'll see how it looks like, right? But like many times how I was saying that we were substantially oversold in these levels. I'm not saying we're this overbought to how oversold we were. We're definitely not anywhere near that level, especially on the daily. But with that being said, on the shorter time frames, I do think that we are a little bit overbought. I do think we've, ran up a little bit, not too much, but you know what I'm saying. I guess I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, right? If there's a place to kind of calm down for this massive rally post earnings, in my opinion, we're pretty much right around this area right now, this kind of like 170s range, right? This is the area to kind of like, okay, great rally, let's reset, seller step in, we kind of calm down, move back down a little bit. Maybe 160 is like the worst case I can see right now, especially if we hold it, that'll be phenomenal, right? But I can't see us going much lower than 160. Everyone's going to be having this gap and fair value gap eyeball right now. I don't think we're going to fill it just yet. Maybe it'll happen much later. I'm not really sure, but I think this will be a lot of a bait. I think what's going to happen is the stock might come down and it may look like it's going to start filling this gap and fair value gap. And a lot of people are going to be okay. Like, I'll buy the gap fill, and then it's not going to do it. And then it's just going to rally. And I think that's kind of going to be a little bit of like a tease or like a bait by the stock, right? That would not surprise me. It does that shit all the time. But that's kind of what I expect right now. So again, I expect a cool off here. I expect a bit of a retrace, maybe to the 165s, maybe even 160. But ultimately, I think Tesla's bullish. I think it's looking really good, especially if we break above 180 soon. And especially if tomorrow we can actually close above, this 170.69 level to create a bullish engulfing candle. And ultimately, Tesla's looking great. I really would not be surprised if over the next 2 months, maybe, we come back up to this top of this channel and we come up to about 230. Like that wouldn't fully shock me, but in order for this condition to be met, I really want to be seeing this 180, like 183 level to be broken. That is like pretty crucial in my eyes. But yeah, with all that being said and done, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Obviously, options flow is interesting enough, I saw a lot of bullishness, but Tesla's not really appearing anywhere here. Its most active puts, it is actually by far the highest over here. But in terms of bullish flow, confirmed bullish flow, it's only at 20 million. So maybe a lot of bulls close their positions, because I'm assuming this is currently open positions is my assumption. So I assume a lot of bulls close their positions on obviously such a massive rally. That wouldn't fully surprise me. But I did see some massive calls come in, right? A few of them were a few $1 million as well. The amount of spam calls I'm getting lately is ridiculous. Where is it? Let me see if I can find it quickly. Here we go, 2.84 million. You can see here, 150 call for next month, 17th. Right, 2.84, that's obviously quite a bit. And there was another one over here somewhere that I saw. Maybe it was closer to the morning. I think it was this one. Yeah, 1 million call came in pretty much in the morning for pretty much a year out. Well, 400 strike. 400 strike, the 1 million call, 400 strike, only a year out. For something that's this far out in the strike, like this far out of the money, for it to only be 1 year out, in my view, even though, they have a lot of time, it's still pretty risky. It's still pretty risky, mainly because the strike is just so far out. Like this is a substantial strike, like, distance from where we are right now, like huge astronomical strike. So someone's clearly very bullish moving forward, but I don't blame him. I don't blame him. The chart is looking like it really wants to reverse, man. This thing looks like it's just ready to go, ready to rip. So we'll see if that's the case or not. But yeah, with all that being said and done, let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.